Savvy Central Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with your host, Christina Nitchman.
This is your host, Christina Nitchman. Each week, Savvy runs weekly broadcasts providing entrepreneurs and successful individuals a platform to express their dreams, hopes, lessons learned, expertise, and wisdom with the world. Our guest today is Karlene Petitt, return guest to Savvy, coming to share her newest novel, Flight for Survival, and her children's book, co-created with her daughter, Kayla, I'm Awesome, the ABCs of Being Me. Karlene Petitt is an international airline pilot and has worked with several international airlines. Karlene's mission is to entertain through fiction while educating the world on aviation industry challenges. She is currently working on a PhD in aviation with her focus on safety at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Today, Karlene and her daughter Kayla joins us to discuss the importance of creating impactful change for our youth. Find out more about Karlene Petitt and all her books at KarlenePetitt, Petitt.com. Hi, Karlene. It's awesome to have you back on Savvy today.
Hi, Christina. Good, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
You betcha. I'm so happy to have you. You've done so much work, amazing inspirational work. Today you're going to share your latest book in your trilogy series, your thriller series, Flight for Survival. We're going to discuss how folks can create and impact positive change in their life and inspire their children to do the same. And lastly, your daughter and you wrote a wonderful book, which you're going to talk about as well towards the end of the interview, I'm Awesome, the ABCs of Being Me. I love that. Before we go all there, share a little bit about your background so those who didn't hear our first couple of interviews together can understand more about your background and also your wonderful series, Flight for Control, Flight for Safety, and Flight for Survival.
Well, we might be recording for like 45 minutes with just this part, but no, I'm actually an airline pilot. I've been flying for 34 years. I spent 21 years training other pilots in a variety of airlines I've worked for. Worked for 8 airlines now and type-rated and flown heavy jets like the 747-400, the A330, the 757. So I've got 7 different type ratings. I'm also a mother of 3 grown daughters, and I have 7 grandchildren. Number 8 will be here probably at the end of June. Aww. And yeah, so that was wonderful news. And I'm also an author. And I've actually, since I've been working in training and training pilots for so many years and watching where the industry is going and what's going on with the future and next gen and this automation and all the industry challenges, I have such a vast training experience. I see things that need to be changed. I see things that are going on that should be changed. And I've also have 2 master's degrees, and I'm working on my PhD in aviation right now with a focus on safety. So I'm trying to pull this all together. You know, everybody questioned me. They said, why do you have an MBA and a master's in human services? And for what I'm doing right now, it all pulls together from the business perspective of how airlines operate to the psychology of how we do what we do and why people don't change or why they do change with just a real strong leadership background, and then the aviation safety, where we're going in the future with all this. So that's really why I wrote my novels. I started out with seeing like the first novel, Flight for Control, with a master's in human services. I did a lot of research in mental health. And so I was really fascinated on what was happening in the industry with pension loss and mergers and all the stuff that could break down somebody. And what would happen? Do we have any protections putting them in the cockpit? And so I created this novel with all the industry issues and what could possibly happen. And of course, I used real accidents and incidents. I take them out of context, move them around a little bit. But what I wanted to do is create awareness that this is a real possibility. And, 2 months after that came out, the JetBlue captain got locked out of the cockpit for a mental health breakdown. So it was very real subject. The timing was perfect, and yet nothing was done. And what happens 4 years later, we have German wings. And so that really hit home, because it's kind of like if you see something and you suspect something that will happen and you try and tell everyone, hey, we have to do something. And then you can't get anywhere, and you try and create awareness, and then it just kind of falls flat, and it does happen. It's it's frustrating kind of because you've done everything you can and you don't know what else to do. And so then I wrote the second in the series. I thought, wow, we can't stop here. We have to attack this automation challenge because, it's very big in the industry right now. Pilots aren't hand flying airplanes. Why not? We've got, this complexity of these new fly-by-wire aircraft, which are very safe, but we still have to understand it. So it's almost like sometimes we get more complexity and think we need less training, where in fact we might actually need more training in areas, and that's my opinion. But I worked some really interesting and kept the same characters. Everybody loves Catherine, Darby, and Jackie, and they kept in the same book in the series. So they're in flight for safety, trying to solve the industry issues in that book. And then the most recent one that just came out, oh gosh, it's been 2 months now, is Flight for Survival. And what I did with that is I took the same characters, and now it's taking into and adding into my education with safety management systems and a safety culture within the airlines. And so I took everything that I learned and what I'm learning now in school, which is fascinating. And then we've got the next gen issues, and we've got drone issues, and we've got, the operator inspector general just came out and said, our industry problems, our pilots aren't hand flying, we're too automated dependent, and we're not reading our mode and NCR panel. So, where are we going with this? So I kind of was able to pull everything together in that, and boy, do I have a thriller for the fourth. Everyone thought this was a series.
Wow.
I mean, they thought it was a trilogy.
That's what I thought,
yeah, it was a trilogy, but I think we now are going to move right into a series, a full series on this one. So
I'm game, girl. This has been a tremendous journey, and I can't wait to see what you have up your sleeve for the future books.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. And the surprising thing is in none of this, we think, oh, this is thrilling fun. I really hope all the readers will get on board, start with Flight for Control, read Flight for Safety, go into Flight for Survival. The fun things, the comments I'm getting on survival right now are, thank you for ruining my weekend. I couldn't put this book down. There's some other, it's just turned out to be a really good book. And so everyone should know that the fourth one is going to be here. My goal date. It's fun. I have to give a little shout for the Western Washington or the Northwest Aviation Conference out here in South Seattle in Puyallup. Every year we have a fabulous aviation conference. It's huge. We've got vendors and people from all over the world will come to this thing. 20,000 people will walk through the doors in this little, in this conference, and it's wonderful. So every year I have people coming to me, Karlene, do you have the new book? They got mad at me when I wrote the motivation book because they wanted a new Darby book.
Right. Yeah.
So probably my timeline for next March.
I can't wait. And what I'm loving about this, you have such a unique perspective in the industry that, many pilots don't have. I mean, I am not a pilot. My partner is a pilot, but I've gotten to see the complexities of aviation as it's grown, and only from the general aviation side. But most, if not most, all aviation is going glass, which means it's computerized. You're right. It's really, really a lot more complex than when I was taking training 10 years ago, and we had it was all steam gauges. And I find the glass to be a lot harder. But there's other things that make things challenging now with the textures and iPhones and that sort of thing. We become, as a society, really reliant on our technology. And how does it harm us, not just in the cockpit, just in life in general, as you become so dependent on using these technologies, and to find that happy balance? Where do you draw the line? For you, what have you seen that could be done to kind of draw the line where pilots can use the technology, but use it in a way that's more safety prone? Well,
the technology is, people, let me back up a little bit. People say, oh, you need to hand fly more. But that technology is there think about the international long-haul pilots. We're en route for 14 hours. Even being a passenger for 14 hours, you're exhausted getting off that international flight. And so flying into a foreign country where you've been up all night, you've got communication challenges with accents, and you've got a lot of other aircraft in the area. That automation is going to help you, because what it does, it reduces your level of workload, where now all pilots can be more situational aware, watching what's going on, hearing, listening, backing each other up, because you still have to program things. Now, even when the automation is off, somebody now has to be programming and touching and moving and giving headings, or, you're still giving information to the computer. You're just not taking it all off and go, here I am just flying my, like my flying my 172. You still have to fly these arrivals, and you still have to be on speed. And so it's, even with the hand flying, it's a very managed approach. So if you disengage that automation, you have just at that moment taken the attention, and you've reduced your backup. Okay, you really have. And so there is a time and a place. But with this automation dependency, we are losing flying skills, and it's going to be a challenge. Somebody just talked, had a great talk with this Captain Wright. He's actually in the shipping industry, and they're having automation challenges with the old school, the new school. And he yesterday said, Karlene, he says, you are going to be one of the last, he goes, your era will be one of the last group that really knew how to fly an airplane. He says, is anyone teaching the new instructors how to teach flying skills? And that was kind of a sobering thought, because think about this. Our airlines and our, even if depending on airplane you go into, every training center teaches you how to manage the system, push the right buttons, fly the approach, learn procedures. But we're assumed to come with the aerodynamic skills of being able to fly an airplane, but we're not getting them at the lower level. It's like I learned in I was going to say 152, but my legs didn't fit in that very well. So I had to go to 172 right away. But anyone listening doesn't know me, I'm very tall. So I had to go into 172 because of the seat. But today these new pilots are learning on their computers. So they're learning how to fly, which is a great skill set. But then they're getting into these airplanes, these glass cockpit airplanes, and it's a different mindset. As soon as they can, they're getting that autopilot is on, and they're not practicing those core skills. And they're getting in complex airplanes where they're not even doing it. My recommendation for anyone who wants to be an airline pilot, go learn how to fly a glider, stay in the smallest airplane you can, and really get some good stick and rudder skills. This is the only time you will ever get them. You won't get them when you get to the job, because it's just changing. Commuters you might do that, but how rapidly the airline's growing right now, this pilot shortage, commuter airlines are having the pilot shortage when they can't get pilots anymore because of the pay scale, and the airlines are still growing, and people don't need to go to the commuters. They can go right to the airline. What's going to happen is we'll see a cyclical change. That part of aviation may just go away. So the airlines will have to, we had the airlines, they created these little commuters so they could, pay pilots less. Basically, it was a good business model. But now if they can't get pilots to fly it, and they're growing their main line, that business model might have to change. And so, but pilots may never get that kind of experience. So it's really valuable. And I was going to say about changing the technology, they're even doing studies with children who are growing up on iPads. Their brains are changing. They're not.
Wow.
They're growing differently. Their minds, they can see it's actually impacting how the brain is functioning, because these kids, instead of about reading books on a paper and crawling and playing and coloring, they're all doing everything on electronics. And we're going to see a new generation here.
This is scary for me. This is kind of really scary. And I've seen this just from a micro level out in the street, with people just walking into a middle of a street where the lights change and cars are coming, and they're not aware of it because they're inside their texter. But then from the aviation perspective, I've seen how students get so enamored with the glass. Ooh, I get to punch buttons. Ooh, I got a cool machine here, a cool computer. And I'm thinking to myself, you're in the air in one of the most amazing machines that have ever been created by man, aka a flying machine, and you're looking at the computer. And so what you're talking about kind of scares me, because the younger generation thinking differently, will they know really how to connect with the machine and actually fly the airplane?
Exactly. And that's so funny that you brought up awareness. I just had this discussion with my husband. We're out walking, and that thing about walking across the street, just totally oblivious, came up. And then I was talking to my mom about something, and awareness came up. And 3 days ago, I was out talking to these kids, fifth graders, and we were talking about awareness. It's so true, because what this technology does, it kind of pulls you in. We want to be focused, which is a very valuable point at certain times. But if you're so focused, you lose the awareness of what is going on around you. Boy, that's going to be a huge, huge problem.
Tunnel vision, which I've experienced myself in the cockpit. As I'm learning new skills, and I was learning new skills, you get kind of wrapped in what I'm doing right here and stop focusing on everything around you. My teacher at one point covered up all the instruments and said, pay attention to the airplane. And I was like, what are you doing? I need those six packs. No, but he was right. You need to feel and be present in the moment. No more so than anything else, but more so probably in an airplane than anywhere else. You need to be present. And I think that's why I really, 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 really loved your motivational self-help book, Flight for Success, because this will be really important, not just for children, but for adults. I think both of them can get a lot from it. It's to really get in touch with that. And like you mentioned, focus is one thing. Because if we're all disconnected from each other and living life through technology, we're not connecting with each other and really not connecting with ourselves.
And that is so true. And I have to tell you something funny, because when you asked me about, when you mentioned the self-help book, actually it was written as a motivation inspiration book. And it kind of turned into, people started saying the adults who are reading it are calling it a self-help book. And I've got so many positive comments from the adults. And I'm like, no, I want the kids to understand. Well, this class I just spoke to, this is kind of giving me the chills. It's so fabulous. But this 5th grade teacher, I met her at an aviation conference. She flies small aircraft up in Sequim, Washington. And she invited me to come up and talk to her 5th grade class to try and inspire and encourage and motivate them. And her class, these students are at they're like oh gosh, what are the different levels with school? We used to have junior high. It's a middle school. So they're like the seniors in middle school. And next year they're going to be going to junior high. And so I went out and talked to these kids, and I brought them each a book, A Flight to Success, and autographed each one of them. And the teacher is using that book for her 5th grade class. These are 10 and 11-year-olds. And they're going to start reading it together in school. And I hope they're going to do the homework and everything at the end, and really looking forward to see what will come of that. Because when she said she was going to do that, I'm thinking, wow, what an impressionable age to have 10 and 11-year-olds now going into school, into another school with the bigger kids, where peer pressure and, the risk of drugs or drinking or whatever they might get into because they want to be one of the cool kids, and that's if you can navigate the junior high level and get the confidence, to get through that part, you're going to make it. And it's such a critical time. And that, I think that's where we lose a lot of kids, and so this is going to be really powerful to see. And they all wrote me these incredible thank you cards and drew pictures of, one of them drew a picture of the cockpit of a A330 that's absolutely fabulous. And I'm going to post this up on my blog on Monday, this class. But I'm really excited because hopefully we'll inspire, we'll give them some tools that they can carry forward,
And that's what it was. It was a whole toolbox worth of tools that you can bring into your life and use. And what I liked about it wasn't just exercises or books you could read. I really liked the part where you added movies that were kind of teaching that particular aspect that you were hitting on. Because some of the movies I hadn't even watched. So I was like, oh, this is really cool. I'm going to check this out. But see, there's many different ways to get your information. Not everyone learns the same. So what was really awesome about the book is all of your different action steps or different ways for people to assimilate and understand themselves. Because I think the true way for someone to have confidence and success and be motivated is to really first have confidence. And I think that's when they get to know themselves, they will garner that confidence.
Absolutely. And the thing about each person learning differently, it's so true. And where are you going to get somebody to say, oh, just go have time to read a book? But everyone likes to decompress and escape into a movie. And there's some really fabulous movies out there with powerful messages of inspiration and hope. And I'm like gravitate to I don't think I've watched a sports movie based on a true story that hasn't been, inspiring and motivational, and those are the kind that I really love. So, but there's some fun movies in there. I forget. I'm not sure if it ended up in the final edit. I can't remember, but was Groundhog Day in one of those movies?
Yes, Groundhog Day.
Yes. The children will love that one, if they get to go watch Groundhog Day. Maybe it'll be a class project.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so happy that you've been able to accomplish so much and so many amazing things in your life. And I know that you just going around the United States and around the world inspires so many people because you've become an international airline pilot. And we shared in past interviews what inspired you to do that, how you did that, even through your trials and tribulations, becoming then an accomplished author, working on your PhD, and now you're working on your master's, and it just doesn't end. And now you're also promoting, and have been for many years, safety in the airline industry. So, I mean, I know many out there will say, well, that's her. She's just like kicked butt, but I couldn't do that. And I don't believe that's true from what you've written. Share why not. What are some of the key ingredients you've learned along your journey that you could share with our audience on how they can strive for their dreams?
Well, here's the thing. A lot of people say, oh, you can't do that. People look at me and tell me, oh, you can't. They'll tell me even today, you can't do that, Karlene. You're overloading your life. Like, here's the interesting thing. I might be overloading somebody else's life, but if you have a passion for something, go for it. And when people tell you, I kind of joke about early on, I was told I couldn't fly because I was a girl. Like, okay, there's my challenge. And I can't write different genres. I got to stick to one thing. Nope, there's the challenge. And so I think probably the message to everyone is, if you have a passion and commitment, dedication to do something, don't listen to what people don't do. Sometimes I think those people are put in our path to really see what our level of commitment is. And the worst thing is you're going to do your best and try and get somewhere. And if it doesn't work out, I can't tell you how many different paths go a different direction. In one of my favorite chapters in that, it kind of gave me the chills writing it, is when I started writing my examples of what happened with each door and how each door kept closing and the next one opened. And as I was writing this, I looked back and thought, wow, if I hadn't made that choice and done that back then, I would not be where at this point today. So everything does happen for a reason, and you can do it. I keep looking at myself, this kid sitting on our floor, playing a game with their friends, divorced parents, middle of 5 kids, where I'm out babysitting to earn money. It's just like to be able to go from no confidence in myself, really, to just take a challenge and to be where I'm at. I'm like, people think, oh, she must be super talented, super smart. I am not. It takes me, I have to understand something. I can't just go read something and memorize it. I got to really understand it. And I'm going, okay, now I get it,
Yeah.
So I'm not, I wish those people who can have photographic memories, so much power to them. That is not me. Speaking in front of people, as you know, in my book, I mentioned that.
Yeah.
Very afraid to do that. But I kept doing it. I kept pushing through that fear. Things that made me afraid and uncomfortable, I kept pushing through them because it was almost like I had to conquer it. I had to conquer it for a reason. And now I'm so grateful that I did conquer those things along my journey because, it opens the door to so many other opportunities. So, and like in the book, probably one of the most important chapters is the fear chapter. In the Flight to Success book is because identifying what fears that you need to push through and how to honor fear. Honoring fear is a very important thing, especially for women. There's a very good book in that one that I recommended, The Gift of Fear, and that's very powerful book. And ironically, one of my son-in-laws gave that book to me years ago, and he was just dating my youngest daughter.
Wow.
And so I'm thinking, and I read that book, and the minute I read that book, and I thought, okay, this guy gets it. Yeah. He's okay. He's a keeper, and they got married, and so we kept him. And
You're so right about that, Karlene, because it all starts with really getting a clear understanding of what are your fears and not letting it hold you back, because now people look at where I've gotten to with Savvy. I came out of a corporate existence that was not healthy for me. I was living an unhealthy life. I was health-wise, body not well, spiritually, mentally, all that stuff, just really at a negative point. Coming to where I have today, putting on conferences and doing Savvy and now live videos, people look at me like, well, yeah, you did that, but I couldn't do it. And I like, trust me, I couldn't get in front of a room and speak. And then at one point when I was taking flying lessons, all of it scared me to death. But I now have the thing that I don't want to always feel comfortable. I always want to feel motivated that I am stretching myself. And if I'm feeling comfortable, that means I'm not stretching myself. And you mentioned that in your book as well.
Absolutely. You always have to feel, Yeah, it's so true. Just a little bit more. But, it's kind of funny about where we get to where we did. I always knew, I didn't like fearing talking in front of people. And by the way, I still get nervous standing and talking to people. It just is getting easier the more I do it. It's still, there's always that little moment of discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
But I am like, if you looked at my bookshelf, we might have to do a video of my bookshelf one day. I have hundreds of books. And it's so funny. If anyone came and looked at my bookshelf, they would say, how many different people live in this house? I have all the business books and the psychology books and the novels but I have so many books on motivation, self-help. I have to tell you, I'm a Tony Robbins addict. I absolutely love Tony Robbins because of his power of not only, he's not just a rah-rah cheerleader, but he actually gives you tools, and he talks to a psychology of why we do what we do, which I think I gravitated to his motivation set because of the psychology behind it, because I was researching psychology. And what he's talking about, there's a lot of things that are so true. So I didn't, I have Zig Ziglar and, I have so many different books and educate people that I learn from. And it doesn't mean that I agree with everything they say, but I read and go, oh, I like that. And I read something else and go, oh, I really like that. But you know what? He said this and she said that. And but what if those two things came together? Yeah, that's me. So that's what happens when you just start reading, opening up and listening. And now, a lot of people do have challenges with reading because it's difficult for them, and it is what it is. My father was dyslexic. He had a very difficult time reading. And so he just doesn't. He'll read a newspaper, but he just has never read a book. And I thought, wow, you know what? In today's world, though, that we have so much other media that we can listen. We can listen to shows like this. We can, a lot of things are on podcasts. We can, on their audio. So, and we can watch movies and we can get our messages from movies. And thankfully, there's so many producers out there who are creating some phenomenal
content.
Stories. Not just about, let's just go do thriller, sex stuff. They're doing really inspirational, motivational stuff, which that's the kind of stuff we need to get into our school system to grow our children,
So true. And it's important because it's interesting you mentioned the learning aspect. I have dyslexia, and reading is really, really hard for me. I get a lot of books from the people who come on my show, and I'm really excited to read them. But often I don't get past even half of it by the time the interview comes about, even if I have a month, because it's so hard for me to read it, and it takes me a long time to get through it and really get the knowledge and the meaning into my system. So you're so right. It's awesome time to be living because there's so many different mediums in which you can learn, not just through books. And I love books, by the way. But that is phenomenal. And what's important also is I think we all have our own God-given gifts that we can impact the world positively. And we talked about this before the interview, that we want to, as parents, inspire our children, as you said, get this information into school systems so that they can be the change the world needs to see and impact change in the world. What are some of the small steps that anyone can take, whether you have children or not, to start impacting the world in a positive way and also our children in a positive way?
Here's something you could just start teaching: good values and ethics and the common courtesies of life that we don't know. I just heard an incredible story of this little gal who won tickets she was like doing some contest with her school. She was a fourth grader, and she won the prize, and it was a bike. And she went over and selected the boy's bike and rolled it over and gave it to a little boy in class who didn't have a bike. And her parents didn't know she was going to do it. Nobody knew she was going to do it. But those values, that caring, came from somewhere. It came from her watching what her parents do in her life. So we as examples, we can do that. But you know what? You don't think that. Sometimes it's just walking down the street and some, people, there's so many things that are going on. We don't know what's going on in somebody's life. Just to give them a smile and say, hi, good morning. Open the door, being aware. This is back to awareness. I will be walking in a grocery store, and I'm always aware of everything going on around me all the time. And I can see across the way if somebody's going to be walking with their bags to this door and they're struggling with a little child. I will stop what I'm doing and go over there, open the door, help them out, because I'm aware of what's going on, and I see somebody will probably need help when they get to that door. And those are the things we can do that's super easy, It's just, once everybody starts doing that, it just might become contagious.
Yes. Yes, and you're so right. I wasn't taking the train in the New York City train system for about 2 years as I was working from home, and I just started last year taking the trains on a more daily basis. And I was amazed because now being out of the train environment, I'm now like, it's super hyper aware. I'm paying attention. It's super crowded. But now I'm in the train and I'm saying not good morning to people because people in New York don't usually talk to each other. It's freaky. It's like, why are you talking to me? What do you want? But I will look them in the eye and smile, and I always get back this super big smile and kind of like, oh, wow, you noticed me. Thank you. Because I think that's what's missing. And part of this technology is awesome that's helping us fly planes better and safer, helping us have, really cool technology in our lives that can make our lives in some fashion kind of easier. But on the other hand, it's caused us to be less aware of each other and connection and have that connection to each other. So I think like what you're saying is just to remember, maybe when you go out to grocery store, put the phone in your purse. Don't pay attention to it while you're out. Pay attention to your surroundings and each other and yourself. What are you feeling right now? What's going on with you?
Exactly. And this automated connected world, what it's doing, it's enabling us to just stay in our little houses, our little cocoons, and not physically interact with people because we can have our 5,000 best friends on Facebook. So why do we have to go out and have people? And you do need people. You need that human touch. Just got a text from one of my daughters, and she wanted to know an ETA for when she's going to come on. So maybe since we're talking about awesome,
let's do this.
What we can do for the kids. Yeah. So this book, I Am Awesome, the ABCs of Being Me.
I love it.
It's just like, I love it too. And I wrote this story, like little children's book, because a few years ago, and I thought, oh, we need a book. I need a children's book too. And I have so many ideas. Yeah. And because here I fly the most automated airplane in the industry. And yet when I tried to get my pen to draw on my iPad, I called Apple why it didn't work. They said, what model do you have? I had one that was so old. It was like the first iPad ever built. That we couldn't even update it to anything. And so that never happened. So Kayla is incredible. My middle daughter she has her PhD in archaeology, and she is a single mom with 2 kids. She's an incredibly talented young lady, artistic, science-minded, everything. And she had always said, oh, yeah, I'll do it for you. I'll do it for you. Well, you can imagine a single mom working on her PhD, her time constraints. So one day she said, hey, Mom, guess what I'm doing? I'm going to start a children's museum. And I said, great. All of a sudden the light bulb's motivation. How do we get people motivated? I said, if you illustrate my book, we'll just give all proceeds to help you get your museum. I thought, what a perfect tie-in. Yeah. And so this book is it's ABCs for the little ones who are learning their ABCs. It has poems in it about like, I can be an astronaut because I'm awesome. Yeah. And it has a little poem about astronomy. And like, I can be an investor because I am intelligent. And so she did the most fabulous job illustrating this. I told her the only constraints she had were she had to make the pilot and the astronaut women so we could take it to all the women conferences, the aviation and women conference. Yeah. But she did a great job. She made this book diverse. She opened it to the world, to every child in the world can come in and look at this. And it's really fun. And so that's why we're going to have her call in and tell you about her museum and what she's doing down there, because it's important. Yeah.
It is so important, Karlene. And you had mentioned we have to bring these concepts into the school system. It's so true, because recently I heard, I don't know who I was speaking to, she said, I asked, it was a police officer after our interview together, he said to me, I went to a school system and I asked, who has ever told you or asked you what your dreams are? And no one had ever asked them that. So kids are not being garnered to even think and dream about what it is I want in life besides a job, a job. Now, there's nothing wrong with going out and working for someone and having a job, but what are your dreams? Why are we not taught in our schools for kids to dream and dream big?
I know. Actually, that's kind of funny. When I went and spoke to this 5th grade class, that was a question I asked them. Yeah. And it was fun as once they started talking, they started out with this job or that job. And then when somebody started talking, then they started expanding into more of the dream, like, So it was really fun.
Yeah, because I heard one kid say they want to be a guitarist or a rock star, because they usually go like, I want to be rock star. And they're like, then they'll be told, well, how about something realistic, Tommy? Like, a car salesman or, working in sales. I was just like, all right, let's go down the totem pole like many, many launches here. There's nothing wrong with selling cars, but what's wrong with being a rocker. So blowing a dream out of the water and saying, let's think realistically, there's nothing unrealistic about wanting to sing rock and roll. So I found that disturbing, and we need to change that trend, because kids should be able to have an awesome big dream, and whatever I want to be, I can put out the effort to do that. Now, here's something else that guest mentioned. He said, wrong though, is that some people say you can be anything even though their skill sets don't match that. His idea is, why don't we find out what their greatest skill sets are and where their passion lies, because usually your passion will lie on what comes easy to you.
And that's what I tried to focus on in Identity, in the Identity chapter in Flight to Success.
Yes.
To really figure out what your identity is. So many parents and friends want to tell the kids or tell us what we should be doing. And, a lot of kids will just go that way because somebody told them they should do it, or some kids will not go that way because somebody told them they should do it, because they were trying to spite that person telling them. But the reality is, if we could teach our kids how to really figure it out. 2 of my master's degrees, both of them had us do an exercise to figure out what our core values were. And which was very powerful, because what do you really value? Because if they wanted us to be successful in the program, and you have to really value what you're doing to be a success.
That's a good way to look at it, Karlene, because you can say, I think a lot of kids will say, I want to be a rock star or something like that, because they've seen on TV this image that sometimes is not really accurate or true of what they think that life is. And does it truly reflect your value system as that person, that kid, and helping them get in touch with that? Why? Start asking questions. What is it about being a rock star that really intrigues you? And as you go deeper, you might find that really it's something else that they're drawn to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Is Kayla there?
She is.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. Good.
Kayla, it's so awesome to have you join us today with your mom. Thank you so much for joining us. You and your mom wrote the wonderful book, I Am Awesome, The ABCs of Being Me. Share a little bit about how you came to writing this wonderful book with your mom.
Well, my mom was really the impetus for a lot of it. She has always done so much outreach, especially related to the flight industry. And I've kind of always followed her footstep. I mean, with such a strong, female role model, it's kind of hard not to. So I do science outreach and education as well. So she approached me about this book. She had written the ABCs that focuses on, really trying to inspire kids to push the boundaries on thinking about what types of things they could do when they grow up. And she asked me to illustrate it for her. So I ended up illustrating it, and then during that process, I ended up starting a nonprofit children's museum. So we have since tied the book to that, and all of our proceeds from the book go towards helping this children's museum get started.
Wow, that is so awesome. So you're an artist too as well.
I have a background in art, yeah. This was stretching me a little bit. I wouldn't call myself an illustrator.
Wow, well that's quite a feat. And what really was the pivotal point that made you decide to start a whole museum? That's a huge undertaking.
Yeah, it is. I am an archaeologist by training. So I've been doing contract archaeology, and then also working at the university level and community colleges and very formal educational settings. But everywhere I've gone, whether it's for field work or even in the areas I'm teaching courses, I've always done some kind of outreach, so informal education. So I've been in the museums, interacting with kids and teaching them about science and bones, and or if I'm out in the field, I'm interacting with community members of all ages, not just kids. Lots of adults get really excited when they see we're doing digs, and spend time teaching them about the science behind what we're doing and how we are, making interpretations on the ground and how we go about digging things up. So that's been my career so far. And it got to the point where, well, a few things. Travel is just a lot, and I have young children of my own. So trying to think about giving back more so to the community that I'm a part of and the community that I live in, rather than hopping around to different communities and giving back there. I really decided to focus more on the place that I live and the place that I love.
That's so cool. And so what I'm getting from you, that what I heard from you just there, is that this is really experiential, and it's not open just to the kids, but to their parents as well, correct?
Yes, it is 100% experiential learning. That's the way people learn the best, right? You get in,
Yep.
you make a mess, and you learn things along the way. So the Children's Museum is 100% experiential. Our art spaces, we're going to have a clay room, a painting room where kids can paint on literally anything. Our whole science wing is all hands-on activities, making a mess, providing a space where kids can really push the boundaries and make those messes and learn things about themselves and about the world without having, the limitations you have in your house and your everyday life.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I told you before our interview together that as a 10-year-old child, I told my parents I was so enthused with a lab, chemistry lab in like junior high, that I came home and told my mom that I wanted her to go out and buy me a whole bunch of chemicals and a Bunsen burner.
Right.
And she's like,
right.
Absolutely not.
It's terrifying. As parents, it's terrifying. And with my own kids too, there's so many parents out there that are really proactive about their kids' education, and they really want to do science and messy experiments and all these fun things that you can find on Pinterest now. They really want to do these things, but even as somebody who knows how to conduct those experiments, it's really hard going out and getting the resources and the materials and, setting it up in a quick and easy way in your house. It's hard for me to do that in my house with my kids. So our goal is to really create that space. We are the resources. We are those resources for those parents to come in and do that. And the parents learn a ton too. I mean, they can get in and get messy. And right now we're doing pop-up museum events, which are just Saturday events. We set up a little mobile museum, and the parents are learning and excited and in awe of all the science stuff that we're doing too. So it's a lot of fun.
Oh, that's so cool. And you're based in Oregon, correct?
Yeah, we're in Central Oregon, so Bend, Oregon.
Wow, I'm so jealous.
About 3 hours east of Portland.
I wish I lived there. But for the folks who do live nearby and would love to come on down and join you, share it with them where they can come to the museum and also where they can find out more about it online.
Yeah, so right now we are raising money for a permanent space. So they can find out, we do have pop-up museum events, like I said, occasional Saturdays where we hold these events. We're running camps this summer at various spots, and we'll be at every festival in Bend. And they can find out more information on where we're going to be and what we're planning on having in our space by going to childrensmuseum.co. And we really hope to get a space open by next winter.
That is great to hear. Well, I want to thank you again, Kayla, for sharing all this wonderful information. And Karlene, I don't want you to leave without letting people know where they can get all your awesome books and your awesome blog. You have a blog of over 20,000 followers, correct?
Well, actually, no, I've got over 20,000 followers on Twitter.
You go.
Yeah, but sometimes some of my posts on my blog get quite a few. One day I got 138,000 views. It was kind of scary watching my blog go click, 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 click. But that was kind of a high-profile accident blog. So, but you can go to KarlenePetitt.com, Karlene. Petitt is Petitt.com, or Flight to Success will find me, and all my books you can buy on my blog, autographed, or you can buy on Amazon also. And there's paperback, hardback, we've got Kindle, and I Am Awesome book. All proceeds, like we said, are going to the Children's Museum for Kayla, and those can be purchased. They can buy them online through Amazon, or you can get a better deal through my blog also. And we will go out, I'll go out and talk at schools to the children, to anything, if we can help, inspire and get the message out.
Absolutely. Well, and if they want to contact you, they can contact you through the blog if they want you to come out and speak to their school system or something like that.
Yeah, or they can email me. It says firstname.lastname@gmail.com, and they can find me. Trying to do everything we can to get fundraising. And if there's any listeners out there who would like to be involved in this ground floor thing, they actually have pretty cool. You get to have a tree, I think.
Yeah, we're doing a pretty fancy art installation that will be permanent. These beautiful silver aspen trees, and part of helping us plant roots. And we plan on being a long-term institution here in town and really giving back to the community here. So
Yeah. Yes, we really, really need services like that all over the country. So I'm so grateful. Thank you, Kayla, for being one among many out there that we need to build even more of these centers for children and for adults to be curious. It's never too late to be curious.
absolutely, never.
Well, thank you. I want to thank you both, Karlene and Kayla, for coming to share your wonderful insights today. This is so important. We want to impact, and we want everyone to do their own impactful, positive change in the world so that we will grow and be an amazing society going forward, even better. So I want to thank you both for coming to Savvy Central Radio.
Thank you, Christina.
Well, thank you.
Your business, your dream. How to have the business you love, the life you want, and the financial freedom you desire. Sign up today at yourbusinessyourdream.com. Here's an excerpt of a workshop I taught on how podcasting can help increase sales and influence in your business. To get the full version of this workshop, sign up for our newsletter on our website at savvy, S-A-V-V-Y, centralradio.webs.com. What is better, live versus recording? Well, like I said earlier in our talk, depending on the platform and what you're hoping to get out, what is the reason for starting your podcast? Is your podcast to build your business? Is it a marketing tool? Do you hope just to meet other business owners and build your leads and sales? All of those questions being answered will really bring to the surface what is the best way to run your show. Now, I'd say if you're just going out there to build leads or sales, or you're just going to do like one of my friends called me and said, I want to start a podcast where I basically do lessons in marketing because she's a marketer. Well, in that case, I would say do them recorded because you're not going to have a guest on, so why make it live? But if you're going to be like my good friend Deb Scott, who is a live radio talk show host, she does awesome live and she has wonderful guests. And as you might imagine, there's plus and minuses to doing live and recorded. Doing recording, there is a loss of spontaneity a good portion of time. I mean, you do have to make sure your energy's up even if it's recorded, but sometimes there's that energy loss of spontaneity when it's recorded. But when you have it recorded, say you have a guest that doesn't show up or you have a mistake during the show, if it's recorded, you can always edit those things out. So I personally like editing, and the first 4 months we started our show, we were live. We had a number of incidences, issues, technical audio issues and such, and I decided, hey, I'm done with this, especially when by the 6th month we started getting sponsors, and I wanted to make sure that we got the best possible audio for our sponsors. So you'd have to make that decision based on what you choose to put out there for your podcast. If, like my friend, your podcast is going to be something where it's a teaching mechanism, then perhaps doing recorded is perfect. Or say you like to have guests on, you kind of like that back and forth spontaneity, and you like to keep it fresh and new and out there, and you don't mind the errors and mistake, and it works just fine for your platform, then fine, go with that. You'll have to come to that decision yourself. I don't think one is better than another, but for my purposes, I felt that Savvy Central Radio would be best served if it were recorded. Another question that came in is, what is the difference between live radio and podcasting? Well, actually, podcasting is actually a digital version of radio. Many radio stations these days are actually having digital archives of their shows put up. In this day and age where people want their entertainment when they want it, how they want it, they don't want to have to know that I have to tune in to listen to my favorite show at 1 p.m. Eastern every Friday. They want to know that, hey, I can listen to it when I choose. And the awesome thing about podcasting is it allows you to listen to broadcasting when you choose. And this is really, I'm seeing the wave of the future for broadcasting, and as you might have noticed, also for publishing as well as TV. We now have cable with DVR. You want to listen to a cable show, you set your DVR, you come home and you listen to it when you want. Well, now the same goes for podcasting. A good portion of listenership is really done after the show or, at different times. It's not on the live show often. It's just awesome that people have the ability to listen to shows as they please. So I really see that as the wave of the future for media of all sorts, as well as TV, radio, and also publishing. And I had another question that comes in here. Okay, someone asked, what's the best way to figure out unique visitorship for your podcast or for your website? Google Analytics. It's a wonderful tool. It takes a little bit to get the handle of it and learn it. But as well, my particular website, which is Webs.com. That's WEBS.com. They offer a unique package where you can get, if you're a premium subscriber, you can find out what your unique visitorship is and such. So it's a wonderful tool there if you use Webs.com. Google Analytics is also very detailed oriented if you set it up as such and you know how to read it. Blog Talk Radio, they offer me through my premium account a listing of who my unique listenership is, either uploads, downloads, and live. And I'm pretty sure, I think I heard iTunes does the same, as well as I know Stitchers does that as well. They offer a report. So there's a number of different platforms that offer these reports, but Google Analytics is another way to find out what your unique visitorship is to your website. And as I stated earlier in the talk, I've directed people who have called me up and said, hey, where should I put my podcast? And I always tell them, put it on your website first. Like this one particular person that called me who was a coach. He said, I want to use the podcast to draw people to my coaching business. And I told him, well, he said, I've been doing this for 12 years. What platform should I use to broadcast my podcast? And I told him, first, upload it onto your website and direct people first to your website. And the reason I told him that is I said, I want people listening to your podcast on your website so that as they listen to you speak and listen to your wisdom, they can get intrigued and excited and go like, oh, look, he has some teleseminars up there and some free resources, and they can get jazzed up, give you a call, and work with you. Now, if you send them to iTunes, YouTube, Blog Talk Radio, that's all wonderful, but they might not necessarily click on the link below your name to go to your website and find out more about you. But if you direct them first to your website, they'll be right there. They'll be in your home, as it were, or in your store, as it were, and be set to look at your other merchandise, your other products or services. So I would say first direct them to your website. So let's get started here. What's the tools you need to get started? You find out you want to get started, you want to launch your podcast, and what is the first place you should start? Well, as this coach said to me, the first question he asked is, where do I get started? What platform do I use? As I said, website first. As far as what other platforms are best to use otherwise, there's a number of great ones out there. I started with Blog Talk Radio. I found if you're not very tech savvy, they're a wonderful place to start because everything's set up for you. It's really user-friendly. You don't have to be computer savvy or tech savvy to figure out how to work it. iTunes is also amazingly awesome. It's probably the number one site where people go for podcasting besides Blog Talk Radio. And now there's some people who contacted me and said, I don't even know what an MP3 or a WAV file is. So at that point, if you're not really too sure about technicalities and you're really not tech savvy, I would say go with Blog Talk Radio. But all the platforms out there, iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, Liberated Syndication, Blueberry Stitchers, Player FM, a number of ones out there are awesome sites. The two top number one sites are iTunes and Blog Talk Radio at the moment. And just to give you a picture of what it is at the moment, right now, Blog Talk Radio through Quantcast is showing unique visitorship at 6,773,000. Interestingly, it's dropped a little bit over the past couple of months, but they're still doing very well and on top there. iTunes couldn't give you an exact amount, but they did say they had over, I believe, 1 billion subscribers. That doesn't say how many people are actually using their podcast, but I can imagine quite a few. Stitchers is coming up and coming. It shows on Quantcast 51,000 unique visitors per month and growing. But what's pretty awesome about them is that Stitchers, which we've just been accepted into their platform, allows you to upload all of the podcasts you're interested in onto your digital devices. You can upload it onto your iPad, your smartphone, your Android, and carry it around, listen to it as you desire. We're all really busy, and a good many of us are listening to podcasts as we're on the run. So Stitcher offers a wonderful way to listen to podcasts on the run. So another great platform to think about when you're getting started. Now, people often say to me, okay, I've just gotten started. What real tools do I need? And I say there's really 4 main basic tools you need to get started. And of course, that would be a computer or laptop, a microphone or headset, high-speed internet, very important. And number 4, some type of editing system. I must tell you in the beginning, when I started my show, I did no editing. I had no idea. I had very little tech savviness. I had no idea how to even edit audio or anything of the such. But as I went along, I'm going to explain to you what I started to use and how simple it was. As far as computers, I use a desktop. You can use a laptop as well. Some laptops also come with a microphone. They're not always very reliable or very good microphones, so I would definitely get a headset just to be on the safe side at minimum. And as far as a headset or microphone, I would settle for nothing less than at least spending $50. I bought a microphone that is Plantronics. It's I believe a 655 DSP UBS one. It's no longer, I believe, being made, but there's a number of other Plantronics. Plantronics is often, they make a lot of gaming equipment, and as you might imagine, a lot of gamers love to buy good equipment and accessories. My brother, who loves gaming, plays with people all over the world on the computer, makes sure he has the top-of-the-line computer memory and computer chips and microphone and all that jazz. So they make really good equipment. My headset was about 60 or $50, maybe 65 with tax. Very reasonable. And I would suggest not spending anything less than, let's say, $50 at minimum. I originally got a cheaper microphone for about $24, very tinny, sounding horrible. So I would make sure just to invest in, at least a $50 mic, Plantronics being one of them out there that is really awesome. One of the top-of-the-line microphones out there is Shure, S-H-U-R-E microphone, which we're planning to invest in very shortly. They make high-quality broadcast mics that you might see in radio stations across the United States and around the world. Also, for high-speed internet, as I mentioned, you really should get either high-speed internet in the way of Fios or cable high-speed internet. I would not suggest anything slower like a DSL line or, of course, dial-up, no way. Anything lower than high-speed internet is really, it's iffy. Your broadcast can get disconnected, choppiness. In order to get the bandwidth you needed and to not have that choppiness, you really need to get high-speed internet. And there's some pretty good packages out there. I think I've seen Verizon starting at $39.99, and there was a package going on with cable, maybe $49.99 for high-speed internet to get started. So that's not too pricey to get started. For editing software, there's a number of different great softwares out there. I use an open source software called Audacity. Audacity is a great free software. It's wonderful and it's free. And open source just generally means that it can continually get updated and, any kinks in it can get worked out. Computer technicians out there, anyone who works on computers, if they see little kinks in it, they can edit themselves and make it better. So it's kind of like a community-based editing software that people can make better on their own within the community. Now, if you go with another software that's not open source, it can be awesome, of course, but you have to wait for updates to be made by the company. And I have to say, this particular open source software, the editing software, is pretty darn good for free software. They have another amazing Adobe Audition offers a wonderful package, and now all of Adobe's products are amazing, and it's not too expensive. You can get them on a monthly basis at a minimum, I believe, of $50. And there's also GarageBand, I believe, that is for Mac. So those are a number of different editing softwares. Now, when I first got started with Savvy, as I mentioned, I didn't do any editing. I thought it would be impossible. But after a couple months of being on the air, and I remember having one particular show that was just horrendous. We had a bunch of issues. I just didn't want to leave it up there and keep it up there. So I took it off of Blog Talk Radio and tried to edit it on my Microsoft Movie Maker. It was a mess. It was really hard to use it because, as you might imagine, Microsoft Movie Maker, for one, is for movies and video, and it's very limited. It's a free thing that comes with your Microsoft suite, but it's not really great for editing audio. I then shortly found out through Blog Talk Radio that there's Audacity. So I tried it, and it is super user-friendly. I mean, if you have difficulty figuring out computers and, all that type of stuff and software, you will have no problem discovering how to use this system. And within less than an hour, you can discover a lot of its functions. I went to YouTube to discover and listen to videos of other people using it, and there's some great instructional videos out there on how to use it. But trust me, if you ever need any help, give Savvy a call. We can help you out with it. It's super easy, and you'll get started in no time, and it'll be very easy for you to edit any interviews you need to. So those are the 4 things I'd say you really need to get started. Number 1. And then, once you've got those basic things going, then I'd say the next thing you do after that, once you have all your tools in order, as people say to me, Your business, your dream. How to have the business you love, the life you want, and the financial freedom you desire. Find out how at your Business Your Dream Summit starting April 26th with your host, Hector Bassett of Davidson Fraser. This online video summit will feature some of the top experts and coaches to help you get your business back on track. Sign up today at yourbusinessyourdream.com.